Now we will move on to the next topic, that is disequilibrium in balance of payment. When there is an equilibrium in balance of payment, when the receipt and the payment is equal, when there is a disequilibrium in the balance of payment, when there is a surplus or deficit, definitely there will be disequilibrium in the balance of payment. So the next topic is disequilibrium in the balance of payment. Balance of payment disequilibrium is a state of surplus or deficit in the balance of payment. Whenever there is a surplus, that is also a state of disequilibrium, even though if it is a positive side. Whenever there is a deficit, that is also a sign of disequilibrium in the balance of payment. Now, when the receipt of a country is greater than the payment of a country, there is surplus of BOP. When our receipts, that means what are receipts? When the inflow, that means our export is more. When the inflow is more than outflow, there is surplus of balance of payment. When the inflow is more than outflow. Inflow more means what? We are exporting more and we are getting money. Foreign exchange. So when the inflow is more than the outflow, we can say there is a surplus of balance of payment. Likewise, when the receipt of a country is less than payment of a country, there is a deficit in the balance of payment. When the receipt is less means when the inflow is less. When is our inflow less? When our exports are less. Our inflow also will be less. So when the receipt or inflow is less than outflow, we can say there is a deficit in the balance of payment. Now we will move on to a situation where there is a balance in the BOP. What is balance in the BOP? When the receipt is equal to payment, we can say there is a balance in the BOP. This is an unusual situation. This cannot happen. Even if that happens, it will move away from that particular situation because our economy is experiencing so many changes like recession, boom, all these things. Therefore, as our economy is experiencing different situations, this kind of a balancing cannot exist for a long period of time. It will deviate from that. So either we will be experiencing the deficit or surplus. So that has to be corrected. Otherwise, there will be so many implications which can affect the economy. That we need not learn it here. The government will take certain measures for correcting the unfavorable situations. Now, we will move on to how these disequilibrium happens. What are the reasons for this disequilibrium? So, when we learn about balance of payment disequilibrium, what comes to your mind? Either surplus in the BOP or deficit in the BOP can cause a disequilibrium in the balance of payment. What causes for this surplus and deficit? I told you both surplus and deficit, both are disequilibrium state. So what are the reasons for the disequilibrium in the balance of payment? Mainly, the disequilibrium factors can be divided into three. They are economic factors, political factors and social factors. Economic factors are related to finance, money. Political factors are related to government, the government existing in the domestic country. So when we speak about it, we'll take India into consideration, our domestic country. Then comes the social factors, society where people are involved in that. So these are the three factors: economic factors, which is related to finance, political factors which is related to the government, and the social factors which is related to society. Now let us see how economic factors can cause for disequilibrium in balance of payment. Now, economic factors are of different types. The first economic factor, we are discussing about economic factors only, and the first economic factor is developmental activities. Developmental activities comes under the economic factors. What is this? Dependency of developing countries over developed countries. You know, a developing country will be always dependent on a developed country. India, which is dependent on United States of America or any other countries, developed countries. When developing country is depending on a developed country, what does it mean? We will be importing certain things, goods from the developed countries. For example, technologies. From the Gulf countries, we are importing petroleum products. From other developed countries, we are importing technology. So, a developing country like India is dependent on other developed countries for so many purposes. As we are developing, we are dependent on developed countries. Developed countries have their own technology which they are well established. As we are not that much developed, we have to borrow technologies from outside for which we have to pay for it. Therefore, our money is flowing outside. That means in that situation, what can we say? Import is more than export. That means what happens here? Import means what? We are getting things from other countries, therefore we have to pay for it. Pay for it means what? Payments are more. Inflow is less, outflow is more. That means we can say payment is more than receipt. Payment is more than receipt. Or we can say receipt is less than payment. If receipt is less than payment, what happens? If receipt is less than payment, what happens? Whether a surplus or deficit, we can say there is deficit. There is a deficit in the BOP because receipt is less than payment or payment is more than the receipt, because our import is greater than export as we are depending more on the developed countries. So, what we have to do to correct the situation, because we have a deficit in the BOP, to correct the situation, reduce the dependency on the developed countries. That is government measure that is not there in your chapter. The government can take different measures, can find solution for that to reduce the over dependency. We should be dependent. In the modern world, no country can exist without depending on the other countries, but over dependence can cause for certain severe problems. So, government has to find out measures to reduce the over dependency. Hope it is clear to you. Now, we will move on to the next economic factor. Next economic factor is inflation. You know what is inflation? Rise in the price or increase in the money supply in the economy. It is a big problem, right? You have learned about this inflation in money and banking. I have told you regarding the inflation in the chapter money and banking. Now, if there is an inflation in the domestic country, for example, domestic country we will consider India. In India, the price of the products are high. Price of the products are high in India. Prices of the products are high in India. Means what? People cannot afford the price of certain goods which are in India. Therefore, definitely the people will be attracted towards the products coming from outside. For example, the products coming from China-made products are the examples for that. So, people will be more attractive towards the products coming from outside. Therefore, they will try to buy more of the imports. As people are trying to buy more of the imports, what has to be done in a country? What will a country obviously do? Imports will be increased. So, when imports are increased, what will happen? What will happen? Payment will be more than receipt. When payment is more than receipt, what will happen? Again, there is a deficit in the balance of payment, because we are paying, our money is flowing out. There will be a deficit in the balance of payment. There will be a deficit in balance of payment. Now, we will move on to the third economic factor, trade cycle. Now, you know trade cycle, recession, boom, all these are the trade cycle, economy moving in different situations. Now, if the economy is experiencing a depression, you know what is the feature of a depression? Resources will not be properly utilized in a country, production will not take place properly, the functioning of all the activities will not be taking place properly if an economy is faced with depression. So, if an economy is facing the problem of depression, for example, domestic country, we will take the case of India. If India is facing that kind of a problem, what happens? this causes for less production of goods in our country, because as we are in a state of depression, production of goods will be less. When the production of goods are less, what will happen? We will start importing the goods from outside. We will start importing the goods from outside. So, what will happen? Imports are greater than exports. That means again payment is more than receipt. When payment is more than receipt means what? Outflow of money is happening. Outflow of money is happening means again there is deficit in BOP. Now we will move on to the next economic factor, that is change in technology, technological changes. Technological advancement, if there is a technological advancement in our country, in India, if the technology is developed, what will be the end result of that? Technology has developed means more can be produced with a less cost within a short period of time. That is the advantage of technological advancement, right? If technology is advanced, more can be produced within a short period of time at a lesser cost. So, if a technological advancement is experienced in the domestic country, more can be produced within a less cost. If more can be produced means what? We can experience a surplus production. So, if there is a surplus production, we can export that product, right? So, in that case, what will happen? We will start exporting. In that case, export will be more than import. If export is more than import, which will be higher? Receipt will be, we are selling the goods to other countries, so we are earning foreign exchange. So, receipt will be more than payment. In that situation, there will be surplus in the balance of payment. So, this is the next factor, change in the technology. Then we will move on to development of import substitute policy, the next economic factor of disequilibrium in the balance of payment. What is it? Substitute, import substitution policy. What is meant by import substitution policy? Substitute all our imports with export. That means encourage export than import. If we are encouraging, substitute import with export. Encourage more of export. Discourage import. Substitute our import with export. So, when we are substituting import with the export, there will not be deficit in the balance of payment. Deficit in the balance of payment will be completely absent if we are substituting import with the export. So, this is related to the economic factors. Economic factors can be thus summarized as point number 1 is developmental activities, point number 2 high rate of inflation, point number 3 trade cycle, point number 4 change in the technology, point number 5 is development of import substitute policy. Now we will move on to the next factor which can cause disequilibrium in the balance of payment. What is the next factor? Political factors. Political factors. What are the political factors? The first one, political instability. Political stability always depends on the ability of the government to run the country properly. If there is any political instability, which means what? The measures taken by the government is not apt for the country. So, if there is any political instability, it definitely will lead to a deficit in the balance of payment. How? Because we will be dependent on import of goods rather than producing the goods by our own. Therefore, if the government is not strong enough, what will happen? There will be a deficit in the balance of payment. If the government is strong, government will be adopting so many measures, therefore we can produce more and we will find a way to export the things and earn foreign exchange. Next political factor is policies of the government. If the policies of the government favors import, if the existing policy of the government is favoring import, what will happen? there will be deficit in the balance of payment. For each and everything we have to depend on the other countries, and therefore import will be more for our country. When the import is more, what will happen? Our money is flowing outside, which means payment is greater than receipt. There will be definitely a deficit in the balance of payment. So, government measures and policies are very, very important for the proper maintenance of balance of payment. So, these are the two political factors. The first one is political instability, and the second factor is the policies of the government. Next, we will move on to social factors. Social factors means mainly associated with society, people, attitude of the people. Now, the first factor under the social factor is demonstration effect. Demonstration effect means what? The people who imitate the lifestyle of others. Normally, we have a tendency to imitate the living style of the people abroad, the foreign countries, the foreign culture. If that is a situation, we will be attractive towards the foreign goods. If demonstration effect is high, we will be attractive towards the foreign goods. If we are attractive towards the foreign goods, what will happen? It can increase the import. So, if import is greater than export, what will happen? If import is greater than export, what will happen? Money is flowing outside. That means payment is greater than receipt. If payment is higher than receipt, there will be obviously deficit in the balance of payment. This is about demonstration effect. The second social factor is change in the taste and preference. If the change in the taste, if the taste and preference for the Indian people is towards the foreign goods, definitely they will depend on the imports. If more taste and preference for the products of foreign goods other than the domestic goods, Indian people have more taste and preference to the foreign goods than the Indian products, what will definitely happen? It can increase the import. If import is more than export, what will happen? Outflow of foreign exchange. That means payment will be more, receipt will be less. If receipt is less, definitely there will be deficit in the balance of payment. Now we will move on to the last factor, cross-border prejudices. That means more dependency on the import of goods. If there is more dependency, the country will be forced, country will be forced to import expensive products from foreign countries. People of domestic countries, they are in very much need of the foreign goods. If that condition persists, government is of a domestic country like India is forced to import expensive goods from outside. So, our import will be more. So, more and more money will be flowing outside from our country. That means payment will be more than the receipt. So, what will happen? There will be deficit in the balance of payment. Now, this happens, this is related to the first and the second factor which I explained, demonstration effect and change in the taste and preference causes for the third factor. This forces the government to import expensive products because of more dependency of the people, because of their demonstration effect and change in the taste and preference. So, these are the three main factors, social factors, political factors and economic factors which causes changes which causes disequilibrium in the balance of payment. Now, we have come to an end of this chapter. You have to learn the notes with regard to this. Thank you.